Anthony Foley, and also in aid of some brilliant charities, then you can download it and you can check out idonate.ie/Alone You Stand. And again, you can podcast the full chat, which sounds like a really good listen, and watch it back by subscribing to the rugby channel on YouTube. So we'll park the rugby for now. We will turn to the Republic of Ireland in action this evening for the final time as part of World Cup 2022 against Luxembourg. We have Dion Fanning with us, Associate Editor at The Currency. Dion, good to talk to you. Evening, afternoon, almost evening. Hello.
Good. How are you?
Yeah, very well. So thoughts on Thursday evening, first of all?
I thought Thursday evening was fine. I didn't think it was. I thought if we have to kind of pick sides and everything, I would have felt like the analysis, the sort of Liam Brady view that it was a nothing game, I would have agreed with. I thought Portugal weren't interested. They said, if you score, we might be interested, but if you don't score, we're just going to go through the motions here. Obviously there were as the game went on, there were a couple of opportunities and there was a disallowed goal. But I thought it was a game just to kind of to move on from. And now if you want to take, I think it's a game you could take whatever you wanted really from it. I don't know, clearly it would be more on the pro side from Stephen Kenny, although I'm so firmly of the view that Stephen Kenny should be Ireland manager for a few years to come, no matter what, that I think it's possible to look at that match and just go, this was a nothing game, rather than seeing it as as part of the case for or against him.
Yes, because under Stephen Kenny, this team has lost its fair share of nothing games.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, that's true. But I think no matter what, I think Stephen Kenny. I think if Ireland had lost every game in this group, I would still be saying Stephen Kenny needs to be manager going into the next campaign, because you're trying to do something that is radical and different, and there's no point in abandoning it. That would have been a very a very hard line to maintain, a very tricky sell, but I would have still felt it was the correct one. Happily, because of some of the results, the debate has kind of moved on, and there's a lot more positivity around what he's doing and what's happening. But just in terms of Thursday, I thought Ireland played okay, but as I said, I just felt watching it like this game is. When a game, and it was a touching moment in many ways, but when a game is kind of basically the thing that people are talking about is something that happened after the match, when Ronaldo gives somebody his shirt, that kind of tells you how memorable the game itself was.
Mm. You were watching on TV, were you?
No, I was there.
Yeah. I was in two minds about the type of game it was, I have to say. Like, I thought first 15-20 minutes Portugal looked on top and threatening and up for it and in the mood to try and end the thing if they could, and they did have quite a few chances, and even, to be fair, those chances continued into the second half. The Ronaldo header, the effort from outside the box, which just fell a touch wide, and he almost scored right at the death as well. It's difficult to know. I think there is a degree with this Portugal team where they're not that good in lots of ways.
No, they're not. They're not a very good team. And then they had rested players.
You couldn't argue with that. To be fair, you looked at the team sheet, and even, their best intentions notwithstanding, when you leave that many starting players on the bench, it does send a message out to the group. There is no doubt. And
then the onus is really on Ireland to do something against that, makeshift defence in particular. Yeah. And I don't really feel that Ireland did that. I think look, there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go with this Irish team. There has been lots of encouraging things. I've been at all the games we could go to as spectators. I've actually been in the stand with my son for a couple of them, and I've been at all of them as a supporter if you like, rather than in the press box. And there is a huge degree of excitement around the players that are coming through, but there are very few positions that you would look at in the Ireland team and say, would you take an upgrade on that position? No or yes. Like every position you're still thinking, God, wouldn't it be great if we had a world class player in that position? And Bazunu is probably the one who you think could, has the most potential to go on and become a world class player. But everywhere else, and that's what I mean on Thursday against this makeshift side, you looked at them and gone, McGrath, Bene, players like that who are it's very easy to get excited about for lots of different reasons. At the same time, it's very easy to see their limitations too. Yeah,
there is still going to be a serious enough issue with goals on this team. There's no doubt. I mean, the Callum Robinson bonanza overshadowed that problem ever so briefly, but I think that problem is back and generally will be here for some time to come, unfortunately.
Well, it's like the weather, Joe. Like, it's always with us. Like, it's never been like the Robbie Keane years apart, and there was never a time, like, I don't think there was never a time when Irish football could look and say we have a goal scorer, apart from the Robbie Keane years.
Was that the brief heat wave?
That was the brief heat wave. That was it. And since then we struggled, and that's going to be a problem now. Maybe there are ways of compensating, and maybe the ways we played football in the past, it was not a self-fulfilling prophecy to a certain degree, that we were going to set up in a way that made the chances that we created, we limited the chances that we would create. Going back years, there was under Jack Charlton, like, John Aldridge was complaining about running his legs into stumps, so he wasn't fresh to take chances. But we have always struggled for whatever reason, whether it's style of play, the approach we went, and there's a conservatism there that probably didn't help too, because if you're leaving out not just Robbie Keane issue, but if you're leaving out over the years, if you're not picking your creative player, if Wes Houlihan is left out, if Andy Reid is left out, or anyone like that, then your opportunity to create chances is going to be diminished.
What's most encouraging about the Kenny era is maybe illustrated by a recently heard absolute would vouch for the source from former Republic of Ireland player who was playing under management team over, at some stage in the last number of years. It's not actually terribly important who I'm talking about and who he was talking about, but he was told ahead of a given game by a manager to hit the pass a certain way to a certain player, and then promptly was told by a member of the team, like the managerial team, whatever you do, don't give it to that person that the manager had told him to give it to. Not because the member of the backroom staff was disagreeing with the manager, but just there was that lack of a plan. They were just, it was the casual day of the game, passing you in the corridors, quick word. And actually, what's so apparent on Thursday, and you see it when you're really at the game, is ball goes to any player out there, and there are patterns in place, as in Josh Cullen, Hendrick, the wing backs, the centre halves. They know they need to be in certain spots. They need to be in certain spots, available to receive the ball, and they're sprinting to those spots. And there are pictures available, and thankfully as well, we're not overplaying to the same degree that we were last March when Luxembourg beat us. You're now seeing, if needs be, balls drilled further up the pitch to wing backs if they're further up, or to the likes of Ogbene, who's in space. But there is a plan, at least. There is a concerted plan for us to keep the ball, and that was not happening very, very recently. And so that's the one major thing you can cling on to in the absence of a Robbie Keane.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to click. There's a lot to click. Like there's a lot to be positive about. I think what Stephen Kenny is trying to do is the only thing that Irish football should be doing. And at the darkest time when after Luxembourg, I felt that too, and I haven't wavered from that because there is no alternative. There is no there is that that the way Irish football in every sense needed to change. It needed to have what it has that is only just developing now, but that sense of connection between the supporters and the team, that sense of excitement about going to see the team. Now that has to be, in some ways, this is quite a good time for doing that, because when you have young players, although obviously even that is probably overstated when you look at the complexion of the age profile of the team on Thursday, but you have the young players that people get excited about, and then you develop something, and I think it's very important for so many reasons. Like what is the Irish team for?
Yeah.
And I think over the last over the previous 10 years, what the Irish team was for, the purpose of it, the fact that we had the wages being subsidized by a benefactor, all these kind of things created a sense of what is this Irish team, the hostility, the way the FAI was run, like all these things kind of matter ultimately. Like they all matter. And what Stephen Kenny wants to do primarily in believing in the players, and again, it's not a question of what type of football you play as much as believing that whatever the situation is or whatever is required to play, he believes the players can play that way, which is again a fundamental difference. But to go back to your original point, we know the stories of Ireland playing Germany under Martin O'Neill in Gelsenkirchen, and Aidan McGeady when the team is made asking people, where is he playing an hour before the game. This is a matter of public record. Like this is, so we know how it was. We know that was, and now Martin O'Neill's style, like there wasn't out of a lack of, that was Martin O'Neill's philosophy, if you like. Martin O'Neill believed that players were grown-ups and they should be able to cope with whatever they're told to do on the however close to a game it was. And that was something, and you'll have advocates for Martin O'Neill, you'll have people like Neil Lennon who talk about things like that and how it worked for them. And it did, and it worked for Martin O'Neill in certain circumstances. It didn't work, and football has changed too, and football demands a lot more.
No, it does. And to be fair to O'Neill, he brought in Wes Hoolahan, which should have been in a decade previous to that, but he saw some possibilities there for sure, and he can stand over Euro 2016. The point you made there is quite interesting about the relationship at the moment between the team and the fans. Like, it was always going to be fascinating to see, once the fans came back into the stadium, when they did, where were they on Kenny? The Serbia game was a really interesting litmus test when the team were losing, and later on there was a chorus of approval for what they were trying to do, and the excitement in the stadium this week, in part down to Ronaldo, but I think you're right in saying in part down to the young players. Hell, in part down to seeing Shane Duffy trying Cruyff turns and the team trying to play. It's really interesting now, in that I think the majority of fans are very, very, very engaged with the team. They're really watching the matches. They're really looking for the signs of improvement. And perversely, even those dead against it for whatever weird reasons, they're dead against it, they're also quite engaged. I would have said we were nearing a touch of indifference about the international team at times over the last decade. So that's a really interesting shift at the moment under Kenny. It all feels very alive at the moment.
Well, John, John, I was thinking of this FAI CEO there, Joe. I was thinking of the thing.
One of the meaner things you've ever said to me. But go on.
No, what did we use? What during those years? What was the thing people used to always say? Like, they'd say, "Who is the CEO of the IRFU? Why are we distracted by all this stuff about the FAI?" Now, supporters supporters would have been on a spectrum about that, in terms of where they stood on the FAI and John Delaney, and there would have been, a hardcore opposed to him. There would have been, as anyone we know from trips abroad with the Ireland team, there would have been his loyalists, and there would have been a great number of people who showed up for matches and didn't care one way or the other. But it was there, and it was, and maybe again as a journalist you feel it's there more than it is for some people, but it was there. Now we're in a situation where for the most part, and the FAI have huge problems financially, and especially, and they're still looking for a sponsor for the men's team and all that stuff, but they're not a distraction. Like, they're not the thing. The team is the thing. The team is the focus. And it's great then that with the team being the focus, that the team is something worth focusing on and something worth getting excited about. Like I remember that dawning realization, which again probably should have realized before I did, when Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane took over, and there was a great excitement, and there was a press conference and Keane coming back and all the the plot lines and all that, and then you go and watch the first match and you realize that they're on the sidelines, that the thing we're watching is the team, and you can distract and you can dissemble as much as you like, but what happens on the pitch has its own integrity that matters. And the more the focus is on that, and the more the team feel that the support is connected to them, and in a way that isn't around necessarily, we're all going on the piss to Euro 2016, or we're all whatever, like that. It's not some kind of, it's a thing that we're going to watch a team develop. We're going to watch players develop. And I think this is a hugely significant time for Irish football. And it's funny, like you mentioned, a kind of little debate about why were people so excited. I think it's possible, and again, I speak from a very small sample size of, my 7-year-old son and his friends who wanted to go to see Ireland play, they wanted to see Bazunu play, and they wanted to see Ronaldo. It was entirely possible to want all those things.
Anecdotally, so I'm in my mid-30s now, I would say in the last 5 years, a bunch of my football watching mates who, like myself, had grown up in the 90s a bit, and teenagers, late teenagers, 02, and it was just a huge event whenever Ireland played. I would say in the last 5-6 years there was a degree of, are Ireland playing tonight? Had crept in. It really had crept in. They're back now. They're back talking about it. They're back interested in it. And that's really jumped out to me in the last year as well. And I think it's because of progression and development and trying something. And it's not just the young players. Look at Shane Duffy, for instance, man of the moment, I suppose. Look at the way he's trying to play the game as opposed to 2 years ago. I didn't know he could do this 2 years ago. I really didn't.
But again, but also I would say the debate around Stephen Kenny probably energised people on both sides as well. Or on all sides. But again, that was a football debate. Like, it was at least that. It wasn't, is the FAI going to have enough money to keep going, or what has John Delaney done now? That it was actually and I agree with you. I think that's that sense of I think it was Declan Lynch tweeted when Ireland-Slovakia was moved behind closed doors. He said all Ireland matches should be played behind closed doors, and that was at the time we joked about it. But then when you look at what's happened with the crowds and that sense of actually getting back into a stadium, has been great, and it's been great to have a team that you want to get back in and see for all the reasons. And you're right, it's not just the young players, but I think the other thing, and just to go back on, and I wrote about this in the Currency this weekend, I think the thing about what people were going to see, it did also illustrate how starved we are. Ronaldo is one of the greatest players the game has ever seen, so people are going to want to go and see him. There's nothing wrong with that, but it kind of seemed to tap into a little bit of kind of sensitivity among the sort of Stephen Kenny constituency who think, oh my God, this is people. This is kind of the barstooler cohort, if you like, or whatever, like those the pejorative terms they use, wanting to watch the team or wanting to watch Ireland for the wrong reasons. It was entirely legitimate that people would want to see one of the greatest players ever, but it also illustrated how little there has been to get excited about, including, and Stephen Kenny, what he's doing is also part of new excitement, but the whole thing, the whole Portugal game did illustrate that we exist on very, very slim pickings in Irish football.
Yeah,
everyone's talking about the last time Ronaldo played, which was a friendly in Tala for Real Madrid in 2009. Like, that's not, you would love to have, and this goes way beyond the international team, but it also taps into what Stephen Kenny is trying to do. You would love a situation where there are great players coming to play in Ireland all the time, that there is Europa League football or Champions League football, or there is something. There is a football culture, and I think this is an important point, because I think the football public sometimes get blamed for not for letting down Irish football in various forms, and actually it's the other way around. Irish football has let down the Irish footballing public. Who have a great appetite, and we could dismiss it, and it's too easily dismissed as though Irish football fans are event junkies or they don't. That's not the case. You can't blame the public. You have to give it, and this, what Stephen Kenny is trying to do, can actually feed into so much. Other people need to be part of it too, but it is, we're in a very critical time for Irish football, because young players aren't going to be going to England because of Brexit. There's lots of things there are lots of responsibilities and opportunities arising at this moment, and we're actually lucky to have a manager like Stephen Kenny who appreciates how critical the development right now is.
Yeah, those doing the chastising, I'm sure that in the stadium when Ronaldo had the ball, they turned away. They were so above it and so uninterested in Ronaldo, as the masses looked on. Listen, very interesting chat. We'll see how tonight goes. It should be interesting. We're going over there in just a moment to check in with Enda Call and Gavin Cooney. But for the time being, Dion Fanning from The Currency. Thanks so much, Dion. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Dion Fanning there, Associate Editor at The Currency. We will take a short break. We will be over with Enda Call in Luxembourg in just a second.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
The Hard Shoulder with Kieran Cuddihy.
George Monbiot is a climate activist as well as an author and a columnist with The Guardian. Are you encouraged by the noises you're hearing from COP26 at all?
No. I mean, it's just a gigantic fart in our general direction. Every noise that our government is making is just like blowing a raspberry at our chances of planetary survival.
The Hard Shoulder with Kieran Cuddihy.
With Nissan.
Weekdays from 4 on News Talk.
At Power City, you can experience the new range of LG OLED TV, now with better contrast, colour display and gaming capability than ever before. For more information, go online to powercity.ie or call in store today.
That feeling is back. Live horse racing has returned, which means you can be trackside again, enjoying the kind of crack that only a day at the races can bring. And of course, the thrill of the final stretch. Get into live horse racing again. For a full list of race meetings and to get tickets, visit hri.ie. Horse Racing Ireland, for every racing moment.
Jake shopped up to 40% off with the Amazon Early Black Friday deals. So now he can be Big Cake Jake. And armed with his new 7-speed handheld whisk, he's treating his street to a whole new world of sweet. But first, he's taking a trip down to Icing Town. Get whisked away with the Amazon Early Black Friday deals, 8th to the 18th of November.
Like a lot of people, you probably have money sitting in the bank earning practically zero interest while prices go up and up. At Ask Paul, we're known for making money work smarter. So, we started our investment club, a community of people investing for the future to beat inflation and make their money work harder. But don't take our word for it. Ask one of the 5,500 investors who invest through Ask Paul each month. Or find out for yourself at askpaul.ie. Pax Asset Management DAC trading as Ask Paul, and Pax Financial is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
In Ireland, we don't get a lot of sunshine, which means we probably don't get enough vitamin D. And that's why we developed VitaBiotics Ultra Vitamin D. Specially formulated, one tiny Ultra Vitamin D tablet helps maintain your immune system, providing all the vitamin D you need in one daily tablet. Bring a little sunshine into your day with VitaBiotics Ultra Vitamin D. Pick up your 3-month supply in-store and online from leading pharmacies and health food stores nationwide.
The Christmas countdown has begun. We're wrapping presents, ordering turkeys and planning the perfect way to travel this Christmas. With Stena Line, sail safely and in style with all the luggage you need and the prezzies piled high. Whether it's catching up with friends or a family reunion, get away to Britain from only €119 one way for a car and driver. Or upgrade to Flexi for only €18 more, so if plans change, your ticket can too. Don't miss the moments that make Christmas. Book now at stenaline.ie.
Auctioneers, estate agents, letting agents and property management agents operating in the Republic of Ireland must hold a Property Services Regulatory Authority PSRA licence. An auctioneer may auction land, fine arts, antiques or animals at a mart. When engaging an agent, don't assume your agent is licensed. Check the PSRA Register of Licensed Agents at psr.ie. Unlicensed agents are breaking the law. Report unlicensed operators to info@psr.ie. Remember, no PSRA licence, no PSRA consumer protection.
When it comes to vans, the Peugeot partner ticks a lot of boxes, and with up to 1,000 kg payload, it carries them too. Choose from 2 body lengths, 1 or 2 sliding side doors, up to 3 seats, 5 levels of spec, and safety features like a full steel bulkhead. With Peugeot's unique iCockpit interior and hands-free Bluetooth, the award-winning Peugeot partner is your perfect business partner. For flexible payment options and to book a test drive, visit Peugeot.ie.
This Christmas at Super Value, we have great offers to help you share the magic. Like Super Value Fresh Irish Strip Loin Steak, save 33%. Nestle After 8 300-gram, half price at $3.25. Selected festive biscuit boxes like McVitie's, only €5. And Las Modas Dada 6-pack K-Steel, only €40. Share the magic this Christmas with Super Value. Enjoy alcohol responsibly.
Does your skin need an instant pick-me-up? Then it's time to glow up with Hydra Facial. Now available at the laser and skin clinics. Healthy, hydrated skin in minutes with no downtime. Get your glow on today and get 50% off your first Hydra Facial at the laser and skin clinics in Dublin, Mullingar and Athlone. Offer ends November 30th. Love your skin. Visit laserandskin.ie.
Discover the Whirlpool Fresh Care laundry range at Power City. The perfect match washing machines and dryers will keep your clothes fresh for up to 6 hours after the programme is finished. For more information, go online to powercity.ie or call in store today.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, all the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
You're welcome back. So Ireland in action this evening, of course, against Luxembourg. Our football coverage is brought to you by Sky. Watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports. Ronan Mullen is here in studio. You're back. Hello.
Hey, Joe.
And we're hoping, we think, Enda Call is joining us from, we can hear the background noise, from Stade de Luxembourg.
Yes, it is the Stade de Luxembourg here in the city centre of Luxembourg here, Joe. And as you can tell from the music, it's no quieter than it is in Aviva Stadium. It's quite hard to hear myself, despite the fact that I am one of about 15 people inside the stadium so far. The action has not started to build up yet. There's no fans here yet. The security have just arrived now, so I would say in the next couple of hours, maybe the next hour or so, we'll start to see fans coming back in here, and maybe there might be some noise that isn't artificial pop music blasted out as loud as you can get.
Well, in fairness, your microphone is doing a hell of a job, because we can barely hear the music and we can hear you perfectly. And just to paint the visual, me and Ronan here in studio, Enda looks to be standing right pitch side, halfway line territory. The lights are on, so it's all working beautifully. Ronan Mullen, we're impressed with the technical job. our boys done out there?
He's done a hell of a job. I can barely hear Dropkick Murphys on the tannoy there, so you've done very well there. And
9,386 the capacity, and I double checked.
Yeah, it's I was thinking it was around that, and it's a weird stadium, you know. It's only one tier the whole way around, and even though it only holds 9,500, just below 9,500, it's actually a pretty big stadium. Like if you looked at it, you would expect maybe an 18 to 25,000 stadium, but that is just on the outside. On the inside, it's one tier the whole way around, red, blue and white seats the whole way around. It's a beautiful stadium, and to be fair, I was talking to Tony O'Donoghue on the way into this, and I think it's going to be cold. It's already cold pitch side. It's about 2 to 3 degrees, and there's no wind so far, but I think that's going to pick up, and a bit like Tallaght Stadium, it's just going to breeze right through this stadium, and it's going to be a nippy one, I think.
I mean, I hope you haven't followed Tony O'Donoghue around too much these last 2 days.
No, not quite. I'm not hanging off him, you know. He just the two of us were struggling to get into the stadium there. We arrived much earlier than the rest of the Irish press, I guess. We're here to set up, but the gates weren't open. We didn't know how to get in. We chanced our arm with a French-speaking security guard who did not understand a word we were saying, but we somehow managed to get in here, and I'm here pitch side, so excited for this game.
Okay, very good. So just remind us of the potential injury news. Where are we with regard to maybe some of the specifics this evening? We've had Dion Fanning on already. That was a kind of a bigger, broader, more philosophical chat. What about the nuts and bolts this evening from an Irish point of view?
It's going to be much unchanged from the Portugal side, I think, Joe. The only difference to this side, the squad going into this, is the fact that Andrew Omobodele is back into the squad. Stephen Kenny alluded to that last night in the press conference, that he was training. They were going through a final fitness check with him, and even the first 15 minutes of the training session were open last night. He was sort of working by himself as opposed to working with the team, and he is in the squad. Whether or not he starts is up for debate. I don't believe he will. I think it will be Matt Doherty as the right wing back, with Seamus Coleman as the centre back as well. The way that Seamus Coleman was talking about his fitness, the way that he wanted to play defensively, he felt he was good enough to play in that centre back position. He enjoyed it against Portugal. So it sounds at least as if Seamus Coleman is going to start this game. The only difference, I think, from the starting lineup is we could see a left back switch of James McLean coming in for Enda Stevens. I felt that Enda Stevens sort of struggled in the first half of the Portugal game. At least he kind of grew into the game, but James McLean might just add that little bit of pace that we were missing against Luxembourg last time. The fact that Ireland are going more direct, the fact that we will be looking to get our wing backs into the game more, I do think James McLean will come into the starting lineup. Maybe that's just a personal choice. And then the last one that I would say is potentially Jimmy McGrath might drop out of the team as well. I thought he was quite quiet against Portugal. Maybe it was the nature of the game, but potential for him to drop out of the team as well, Joe.
And then is there a sense that there might be, I know the priority the other day was to keep things solid, but in terms of being more progressive and scoring goals as they did in Baku, that Ireland might be a bit more expansive in terms of their selection or setup?
Ireland are going to win this game. That's the motto from the Irish camp. They are not taking this as a game that there's nothing hanging on. Seamus Coleman interrupted a journalist mid-question last night to say that this is not a game that means nothing. This is a game that means finishing third, which is a big thing now for this Irish side, even just to save face at the end of this World Cup qualifier. Stephen Kenny said the same. This game means a lot to the Irish players. It's not that they're going into this game as a revenge mission. They said that as much as well. They just want to get the performance right. That was the key message coming out of the camp last night at the press conference, getting the performance right, and they believe the result will come. But it's very much get a result as well. It is not a dead rubber game by any stretch of the imagination, according to the Irish players.
And how did you feel when Seamus Coleman cut across you like that?
It wasn't me, Joe. Thankfully.
No. Of course, he would never cut across a Donegal man.
Real recognise real.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Once he heard the accent, he'd probably ask where I was from and if I was playing the gas. So I don't know.
Well, you got to stop wearing the jersey to the press conferences. I mean, it's just trying too hard. So Luxembourg, we should mention, obviously, Luke Holtz, the manager. He's been in charge for 11 years. This has been a real time of improvement. They've set up an academy. They have a number of overseas players, so they've cast the net out far and wide to bring in some overseas players with links to the country, and I mean, like we have done, of course, in the past. And so there has been a huge improvement of late. They've had draws with Italy in 14, France in 17, and in this qualification campaign, needless to say, they've had some big results, including against Dublin. So they will feel confident themselves. You've been speaking to a fellow colleague out there, Enda?
Yeah, I was speaking to Gav Cooney. This was actually after the press conference last night. So obviously a couple of the talking points we've hit on already. Omar Badele coming back into the squad, talking about Seamus Coleman and talking about that Stephen Kenny reaction to the British question as well. That was actually Gav's question when he asked for the reaction to Luke Holtz and what he was saying about the British style. But we kick off this audio when I asked Gav about Omar Badele coming back into the squad and whether or not that means he will start.
Yeah, it seems that Omar Badele will be fit. As he said, he's running, as we speak, he's running through his own little exercise in the corner of the pitch with the team doctor. But Kenny was asked about it and he says he thinks he'll be all right.
I guess that gives him more leeway if he is fit with the starting lineup, because Seamus Coleman was in front of the media as well, talking about his fitness and how he always puts himself second towards the team and what the team needs, and he feels that if he's fit enough he will play. And I guess if Andrew Badele is fit, that means that Matt Doherty can push out to the right wing back position. Badele can come back into the centre back position, and maybe Seamus Coleman doesn't start this game. Maybe there's more energy that way.
Yeah, like Stephen Kenny did say last week when he was asked about it, that he wasn't sure that Coleman is up to playing 2 games in 4 days anymore, given his kind of fragile hamstrings. But Coleman was up for press today. Should we take that as a sign he's playing? I'm not so sure, given it's only days ago since I wrote with great confidence that he wasn't going to play against Portugal because he didn't do press, and lo and behold, he played the whole game and played very well. So it depends. And if he does want to freshen things up with Coleman, I think maybe he will play Coleman now, because when Ireland play against these sides that, you know, they're the lower ranked sides they're expected to beat, he usually likes Coleman to the right of the back three, just because when Ireland attack he can become almost like an orthodox right back. He can, you know, go on overlaps and allow Doherty to underlap and come into the penalty area in those positions that he was so effective for Wolves a couple of seasons ago. So I think that's maybe the case for starting Coleman. So I think maybe he's going to do it. And Coleman, naturally, when he was asked about basically how are your hamstrings, mate, he says they're grand.
Yeah, and Coleman was also asked about playing in that defensive role, and he said that he's a defending defender. That's what he likes to do, and he really enjoyed the role against Portugal, coming up against Ronaldo. I think he did a pretty good job as well, keeping him quiet for the most part. Another interesting thing to talk about going into this game is the sort of mind games going on in a dead rubber game, going into the last game of the World Cup qualifiers for teams fighting it out for third place and can't qualify. Luke Holtz saying that Ireland basically have retreated to the British style over the last couple of weeks, and that's where they're getting the results, that they're playing more long balls. Stephen Kenny did not think that was worth a response.
No, what a wind-up merchant Luke Holtz is. I don't know where you were at the Luxembourg press conference, but he delivered these words, Holtz, with a slight, got a barely perceptible smile cracking over his face. So I think he was having a little bit of fun with it. So Holtz says that Ireland have gone, ever since the game in March, when, in fairness, Ireland kept trying to play it from the back and they were so bad at it. Like, Kieran Clark kept giving the ball away, was hooked after an hour. It's just that Luxembourg press league just couldn't beat it, and they kept trying to do the same thing over and over again. It was absolute madness, you know. So I mean, that was when the criticism of Kenny was at its fullest, and a lot of it was pretty fair. You know, it was a really bad night for him and the players, but they have changed how they've played since then. Now Luke Holtz exaggerated things a little bit when he says we've gone back to a British style that we've played for 100 years because that's our culture. It's not, mate, but okay. And talked about, excuse me, that we play more long balls, more physical contacts, etc., etc. Kenny asked about it, said he really didn't want to get drawn into a discussion on it, merely said that it's not accurate, anyone can say anything. But to be fair to Holtz, he over-exaggerated, and I think he maybe knew what he was doing a little bit. But there is a nugget of truth to it. Like, I mean, Ireland do play with more variation now. Like, I was just looking at stats, like, they only play, under the stats, like a long ball is one that goes more than 25 yards, sorry. And they played, I think it was 5% of the passes they played in that game against Luxembourg were long passes. The average across the 9 games since is just over 10%. So they are mixing it up, for want of a better phrase, a little bit more. And Coleman talked about it as well, that, you know, when opponents do press you, like Luxembourg did in Dublin, Ireland actually didn't have an outball, didn't have an outlet, or, you know, they weren't creating space down one of the flanks, say, for, like we saw Ogbene run into against Portugal, or Connolly run into in Faro, and so on. So there's more variation in the Irish game plan. So Holtz did I think have the grain of a fair point that he did that he then did bag down with all the all the baggage that Stephen Kenny's been trying to get rid of. Because Kenny, one of the first things Kenny said when he took the job was, I want to break our association with a British style of play. And then a year the day after he said that, Fernando Santos, the Portugal manager, described Ireland as a British team in Faro, and now Luke Holtz has added too.
Yeah, and the way that Stephen Kenny sort of sidestepped the question was saying that Ireland are exploiting space. That's what he said in describing the way that Ireland now play. And I guess it comes with the timing of that Luxembourg game. Ireland, and Stephen Kenny alluded to this as well, are in a different place when it comes to the style of camps that they're in, with COVID regulations and with the amount of players they're missing. Chidoze Ogbeni obviously gives that outlet option as a pacey player who can get in behind. We saw as much with absolutely terrorising Danilo against Portugal on Thursday night, but also the likes of Callum Robinson, who's a different outlet as well, coming short. And with the wing backs now playing further forward, I don't think Ireland were playing 3-5-2 at that point in time. I'm open to correction on that, but they do have more options. They have more players, and they're able to play a different style of play. And I think if that Luxembourg game comes, and it will come tomorrow, the way that Ireland play, then I think the variation will be the difference.
Oh yeah, like they played the three at the back in the game against March, but they just did it badly. Like they didn't have enough options. They didn't change the point of attack, for to use a rugby phrase, I suppose, often enough in the game. They just tried to, like Luxembourg pressed up. They kind of pressed higher on the left and the right, and that meant that the angle at which Ireland were playing at, the ball kept going to Kieran Clark's feet because he was the left of the back three. And like he and Enda Stevens played poorly, and Josh Cullen and Jason Knight were in midfield, and they played poorly because they were pressed in the first couple of minutes, and they just didn't have confidence to get on the ball after that. So that's another thing that I think has changed for Ireland. There's a lot more confidence in getting on the ball, and Enda Stevens was talking about this after the Portugal game. And one of the reasons there is more confidence is just that they're more used to playing with each other, and they know where everyone else is going to be. Like, I mean, when Kenny was talking about the importance of passing before the Portugal game, he couched it in the terms that it's not necessarily the job of the person on the ball, it's about those around them to get in the right positions. So, like, for example, in the opening few minutes in Luxembourg in March, ball was shoveled into midfield for Josh Cullen or Jason Knight, and they're just kind of, they're too slow on it, and they get robbed of possession, and then, you know, Portugal get a counter-attack and a potential scoring chance. That shouldn't happen in this game. There's more confidence on the ball, and there's more confidence in the teammates around them. Enda Stevens used the word connectedness. You know, they know where everyone else is going to be. So that, I think that is one of the big advances in the Irish game plan since last March. And the other then, as we said, is what Luke Holtz would describe as the position of maximum opportunity and lumping it long. Ireland don't lump it long, but they exploit space. Yeah, I do like the euphemism that Kenny used for that.
Yeah, it's a nice little way of answering the question without getting sucked into any sort of mind games. Before we talk about the game tonight specifically, what about the campaign in general? I was thinking more sort of reflecting on the campaign and the narrative going into the start of it, where, you know, the Serbia game was obviously a tough game to start with, but then everyone thought, okay, Azerbaijan and Luxembourg will get momentum, and it actually had the opposite effect, because the team weren't ready. They weren't adjusted in time to play that style of football. They weren't used to, you know, there was COVID issues, there was players missing. Everything that could have went wrong did go wrong, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if now, looking back, Ireland probably would have been better starting with Portugal, starting with Serbia, because they wouldn't have been expected to win those games anyway. And maybe by the time those games came along further down the line, the situations that went on didn't actually happen. I know that's a bit of revisionism going on there, but I feel like if Ireland had a more dangerous start to the campaign with Portugal and Serbia, that they potentially might not be sitting here fighting it out for a third place finish and a second win of the campaign.
Maybe, but like, they played well in Faro as well. Like, we saw a lot of the progress was evident in that night in Faro, and then they followed it up with a poor performance at home to Azerbaijan 3 days later. So yeah, maybe that might have been the case, but I think, like, this is what's another thing. Like, why are we watching this game tomorrow? We want to see that, like, to mint the progress that has been made, because there has been lots of progress made, and anyone arguing otherwise is coming from an angle of bad faith, to be honest. So one thing that Ireland have to improve on is going again for a second game in 4 days. Like, it's been too up and down. Like, and the question was asked to Stephen Kenny, didn't really answer it, I don't think, and certainly in the way that the question was intended. The last time Ireland played well against Portugal, they drew at home to Azerbaijan. So how do they once again keep their levels high? And that was what Stephen Kenny talked about. We don't want to put in a good performance in front of a full house against Portugal and come here and lower our standards. So that's one thing that has to be addressed.
Yeah, and Seamus Coleman, then specifically talking about this game, stopped a journalist dead in his tracks when they were saying that this game doesn't mean anything. He was saying this game does mean something, that they're fighting for third place regardless of whether they can qualify. On this game specifically, where are we looking for Ireland to exploit Luxembourg this time around? Because last time it was flat. You do have that potential of the Portugal high and then falling flat again. So I guess an early goal, is that what Ireland are looking for here?
Oh yeah, look, if Ireland had gotten an early goal against Azerbaijan or Luxembourg at home earlier in the group, I don't think the results would have gone as they did. Had Ireland scored the first goal in those games, I think they would have won them both, to be honest. And we saw, like, in the home game against Luxembourg, there was one moment of really good play. Like, it was a really sweeping move. It began on the left, went out to Doherty, who was coming in for the right, and it ended with a cross from the left and James Collins missing, blasting right at the goalkeeper from 6 yards out. So it's just, but Ireland then didn't do that again. You know, they just kind of slackened off. They need to keep that intensity high and need to make a fast start tomorrow, I think. And look, Luxembourg they're probably better than, you know, a lot of people would see the name and just assume minnow and write them off and expect to beat them 4-0. They're a better team than that, but Ireland should still be winning this game tomorrow night. And like Luxembourg are without their captain, he's suspended. They're without their first choice goalkeeper, he has COVID, so there's vulnerabilities there. Okay, they won 3-1 in Baku earlier on this week, but you know, the first goal didn't come until nearly the 70th minute, and Azerbaijan were down to 10 men at that point, you know, so it really should be. I know I did try maybe to console myself after the game in March, did talk Luxembourg up quite a bit, but it's a game that Ireland should be winning.
Yeah, look, there's one man in the Off the Ball studio that has been talking Luxembourg up for the past 4 years, and that's Stephen Doyle. He has been egging them on for the last 2 to 3 years since the last campaign, but you've had a couple of predictions that haven't gone your way, especially on Off the Ball over the last week or so. I just had to get it in there. You know, the clip was going mighty on social media there. Can I get your prediction for this game? Is it safe to take your prediction for this game?
Yeah, Nathan Collins will play. No, I think Ireland will win. I think Ireland will win 3. No, that's too optimistic. 2-0.
Okay. That's what I went for as well. So hopefully one of us will be right. Both of us. Yeah. Gav, thanks very much.
Cheers.
Gav Cooney speaking to End of Call. They were speaking last night, by the way, so don't be confused by all the references to tomorrow night's game. It is very much this evening that Ireland do play Luxembourg, 7:45. And our football coverage is brought to you by Sky. Watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports. We're going to take a short ad break, and then we're back with a really interesting feature interview after news headlines with Richie Partridge.
We know you have many questions when it comes to investing and growing your nest egg. So this weekend on News Talk, together with Irish Life, we want to help you start your investing journey